Hello, I'm Trey and welcome to another of my colouring videos. This time it isn't a tutorial. I decided to reflect on some of the colouring projects I have done over the last 12 months and how I felt my progress had come along, if I had improved my skills. So I'm just going to be doing that for some of my favourite projects. This project, this first one, it's designed from a Colour in Heaven magazine, and it's Adele Lorraine, I think they call the artist. Now, when I got this book, I looked at the art and I thought, oh, this looks so nice. And then I came to sit down and do it, and I thought, this is so complicated. And I've done very little out of this book. I think the first design I tried took me about 3 months to figure out what I was doing. So I kind of got put off a little bit by this, but I've decided to go back this year and have another go because I really liked the artwork in here, and I did this project. I managed to complete it. It took me quite a while, and I really like it. And it's so nice to be able to do a project from a magazine or a book that I've got that I really struggled with originally in that. Now, I can't remember what pencils I used on most of the projects I'm going to be looking at. I think this might be the Castle Art pencils and Refine, because they tend to be the ones I use the most, especially when it comes to skin. So this one here, I practiced my skin, but it was all this leaf detail. It's quite complicated to figure out when it's in line art, and I just wasn't sure what to do with it. But when I did this, I was very pleased. So this is one of my favourites for for this year, 2019. I mean, I do colouring to manage, or try to manage, the effects of trauma, anxiety and depression. But one of the things I've noticed, if I just do an activity and I don't think about what I'm doing, it's just mindlessly done, I don't get the same benefits from it. And that's everything I do. So everything that I do that helps me manage my trauma, I do reflect on that and how I've done it and any benefits. Now, this is one of my favourites, and the reason this is one of my favourites is because it's the first design I tried with my Prismacolor pencils. I only got those earlier on this year, and I was kind of frightened to use them for quite a while. So eventually I bit the bullet and had a go, and I did this one. And this is a design by Momo Girl. Again, it's a Colour in Heaven magazine. And I just love the artwork. I think it's so beautiful and so detailed. So one of the things that I find daunting about that kind of artwork is, can I do it to any kind of justice? So again, this is a magazine that I haven't done a lot of, and that is because of that. I want to do it nice, and I haven't felt really that my skills were up to scratch as such to do it justice. So this is the first one I did from this magazine, and the first time I used my Prismacolors, and I'm so pleased with it. It has so many elements that I feel worked. You know, the flowers, a skin, a hair. It's just great. And I haven't done much more from this magazine, but I will, as time goes on, go back to it. And also probably use my Prismacolors because they blend so much nicer. These aren't in any kind of order either when I did them, just that these are my favourites. Now, dragons, I love fancy designs and dragons, and this is Anastasia Ellie Caldereva. And again, I got a chance to do this kind of artwork through Colour in Heaven. I've done one or two of the dragons, including doing a colouring tutorial for one of them, which the link in this description you'll find if you want to look at that. This is one of my favourites though that I've done. And it's because, one, it's so cute, and two, the colours. I chose 2 or 3 colours and stuck to that, and it just works so nicely. There's enough little bit of shading in this to help as well. So that kind of helped with how it came out and the outlook of this. But this is such a pretty one, and I use pretty cheap pencils to do this. My cheapest pencils. So that really came out nice, considering I used quite low budget pencils on it. So it was a nice project for me to manage those pencils and try and get the best out of them. So yes, this is one of my favourites. Worked out really nicely. And quite often when I do another design from this book, I go back to this just to remind me of what does work. The next design is one from Kanoko Igusa, and again a Colour in Heaven issue. I haven't done many designs from this book, and I really like them because they remind me a little bit of Beatrice Potter artwork, but better, I feel. And this is my favourite that I've managed to do from this issue. And it's also one of my favourites for this year, and there's always something I'm trying to do or achieve in each project, and for this one it was trying to get a kind of like glass effect, and I think that I got the colours right. I mean, I used Renoirs, but mostly W.H. Smith pencils and Faber-Castell Classics cheap pencils again, because some of the colours worked really nice for what I was trying to do with this blue, and it just works so nicely. So it's a learning curve. So quite often I try something and it works great, and I try and remember what I did. Also, these puddings and the sweets just look and manage a nice 3D effect, and I really like that, considering again most of it is done with cheap pencils. So yes, I like this one. This is one of my favourites for 2019, and the characters are so cute. When I do something like this from this book, it's one of those that makes me feel really good, cheers me up, and I like that. I like a fun design, and these little characters are up to so much throughout these designs, little cheeky characters, and that puts a smile on my face. Now this design I'm going to show now is Nalek Showmaker, I think that's how you pronounce it. Another one from Colour in Heaven. I've had the chance to, through these magazines, to be introduced to artwork by artists I'd never heard of before, and I really like that. With this one, I used the Castle Art and Refine pencils. I like those combination pencils together. They complement each other quite well, and the Refine have better skin colours than the Castle Art. But because this was a fantasy design, and it's one of the times I decided to go with unusual skin tones, that really works for me. Much better than trying to go for natural. I like the effect. And this was such a striking project. When I finished it, I thought, yeah, it just stands out. One of the learning curves for this for me as well was trying to do dreadlocks. First time I tried to do dreadlock hair, need a bit of practice with that. Completely different hairstyle. But I like the bold artwork style of this artist. And again, I went with a limited palette. I've been doing that a lot this year, and it's working for me as well. That's something else that I decided to do just over 12 months ago. It was quite difficult at first, but I've got into a nice routine with that, and it's working nicely for me. I try and keep my colour palette down to 5, less if possible. So yeah, another one of my favourites. It's all the elements just work nice. It's got depth. and I love the way the skin worked. Now, through Colour in Heaven, I was introduced to Molly Harrison. However, I actually had known about Molly Harrison's artwork through my card making. So when I saw there was colouring books, I was really pleased. So I decided to try one of her own colouring books. Now, one of the things about the Colour in Heaven magazines is the quality of the paper. It's really good. And I got one of Molly's own books. The artwork is just lovely. The paper quality, not so good. So it kind of difficult for me to work with this. Again, I used a couple of pencils, Castle Art I think, and Refine on this one, and I went for a very basic reduced colour palette, and it's turned out to be lovely. I really like this one. I think it would have been better if the paper had been better, because I noticed the pencils are struggling with it, but other than that, I love this project. It's so vibrant. I remember when I did it, how much the colour I used affected me in a positive way, and that's something else that I tend to do with my projects. I tend to try and do quite vibrant projects because they make me feel better in myself. Really love the delicate artwork as well in this book. So as always, if I have artwork that I really like and I hope to try again, in case I mess it up, I take scan copies for my own use. And this is definitely one of those books for that, basically also because of the paper. Now, this book, the artist is Norma Burnell, and it's a combination book where one person writes the sections in it and the other person does the illustrations. Now, the writing, the little passages in this weren't of interest for me. It was the illustrations. Now, this design, all the designs in here are like Tangle design, so I like Tangle. It's very relaxing to colour in. But I really like how I coloured this one in. I haven't done many in this book, but the reason why this stood out for me this year was because it's the first time I used baby oil to do blending, and it works so nicely with these pencils. I used Castle Art and Refine, and the baby oil worked great with these pencils. This dragon is just so cute, and the colours I used, I complemented in both the dragon and the lady in the outfit and the hair and everything, and it just works so nicely. It complements all the way through. I love this. Yeah, definitely one that stands out for me. This one of my favourites. So vibrant and works so well. Another artist I came across through Colour in Heaven is Hannah Lynn. I'd never come across her art before, personally. I had seen other people doing it, but I hadn't tried it, so I was really pleased to get one of the issues with her artwork in. I got this one because I like steampunk. I really do like that theme. And this is my favourite of the designs I have tried so far in this book. And that's because I had a go at doing a little nose. Now, the only downside to her, the only little thing I don't like about her artwork is she puts this little mark for a nose, and that's it. And I like a little bit more of a nose. Doesn't have to be a lot, but a little bit. So I actually put a nose detail in there myself, and it worked. I'm not an artist, so I was well pleased with this. So again, the skin tones worked really well for this, and I think that's another reason why this is one of my favourites. And the colour palette and her hair, because I hadn't done hair like this before. I like the ringlets. So this is a lovely one for me. It's kind of striking. It stands out. I like her eyes as well. I kind of use these designs to practice different type of eye colouring and shading. Now, one of the books I really like to use, and I've done one tutorial, is Beautiful Flowers Colouring. This is a book I got from a local bookshop, and Arcturus, I think they pronounce that. And the reason I like this is because it has a picture. Now, as you see, my picture looks nothing like the original, but I just use it as a guideline. And I've tried one or two designs in this so far, and this is my favourite that I managed to do this in this year. Completely changed the colours. The Renoirs didn't have the reds that like this, so because I was going for my orange, I changed the shades of green and yellow and went for blue rather than brown and yellow for the butterflies, and it works really nice. I think it's one of the best realistic or near realistic flower designs I've done, and I'm going to use this book a little bit more in the coming year for tutorials because it's a really good one for me to use. It's got realistic artwork in for me to try and do tutorials on doing those kind of designs. One of the things I've noticed with most of my pencils, apart from the Prisma, is the reds. They're all orangey reds. There's very little what I would call true red, berry reds, that kind of shades. So I do tend to have to change my shading if I try and do a red flower. But it worked really nice. Love how I managed to do the light source, and this is another book I like for that. It shows me light source and it helped me get into practice of doing that. Jade Summers is a publisher I've used now and again, and I was gifted this book and I love it. There's 100 designs in here and it's going to take me ages to get through them all, and I really do like it. I will be doing a tutorial using a design from this book in the near future. Castle Art and Refine pencils I used again on this one, and I did it completely different from the example on the front page. I decided to go different colours and it worked so nice. I went for a more pretty looking vampire. I love the way her skin worked out. Now, the only downside to this book is the paper quality. It's kind of cheap, but I managed to get away with these pencils on this paper. I'm not quite sure how Prismacolor would cope with it, but those pencils I did okay, and I used a couple of I used baby oil and zest on this and it coped okay. I really do like this as well because I did a little light source. I did from the top left and tried a bit of shading for that, and I think it worked reasonably well. And it's a big design. There's a lot of skin, there's a lot of open spaces to fill in, and I managed to smooth it out because of the zest and the baby oil, and I love that too. So this is why this is one of my favourites. I just think it's showed how I've managed to develop my skills with practice, and I like that focus and I like that improvement of skills, and that's important for me. Thomas Kincaid is an artist I come across in my crafting. I have quite a few of his artwork in my crafting. The Christmas and ours is mostly scenes. So the Disney one isn't something I would normally get, but I won this in a competition, so I thought I would try it, and it's just awesome. I mean, this is my favourite of what I've attempted in this book. I've only attempted 3 so far, and this is my favourite. I think it's turned out the best. I'm going to try another one. I'm working on another one, and I hope to finish it soon, but it won't be this year. Now, that's the original, and what I've learned with this book was try not to stick with as much to the colours, because I just don't have the colours. You know, with the pencils, I don't have the colours. These are painted, so I'm not going to get this effect. So I'm using the originals to learn about light source, and so I go with slightly different colours, but I'm managing to get quite a nice effect, and this one turned out lovely. Really do like her dress. And the stonework, it was an event, you know, attempt to do stonework, because I'm not very good at stonework, especially doing bricks as such, and include a bit of shading and light source. So I really liked how this turned out. It's got depth. Despite the fact it's not the same colour as the original, it still works really nicely. So this is a very complex book, and I'm learning quite a lot from it. So some of the things I do in this I know won't work very well, but it is going to help me learn quite a lot about light source. Now the last book I'm going to show is one that by Kirby Rosanes, and I hadn't any of his books, and I found them quite daunting, to be honest, when I saw them designs from that other people had done. But Colour Morphia came out, so I decided to try it, and I managed to get it in a local store, and it was in a sale, so I tried it. And I've only done one design so far, and that's this one. And I decided to do a very limited colour palette because it was a big space and it was a bit daunting. So I went for greens and orange and yellow, and that was what I did, and it worked out quite well. It helped me focus a bit better. I was trying also to do metal work. I used Renoirs for this one, and it worked reasonably well. I think I need a bit more practice, but I still got a bit of depth with this. So that's why I like this. It's unusual, it's different, and it's a very, very limited palette. And for something like this big and complex, it was quite a challenge. So that's why I really like this one. I think it's one of the ones that stands out for me for this year. So they're my favourites for this year. So I hope you found that interesting. I'm not going to go through every colouring project that I have done this year, but they were the ones I felt that worked the best for me. In the following year, I am going to be doing more tutorials, and hopefully they will be of use and interest for people as well. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you again in the near future.